What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the Gramercy Theater for the final Gramercy show of 2022. And anything's on a great note. We are here with Emma of Dying Wish. Great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. It's so great to have you here. Fragments of a Bitter Memory is one of my personal favorites of 2021. It's great to continuously hear this music for the third time this year. I am curious to what the thought process was behind Fragments of a Bitter Memory, because I feel like that sounds like it could be a very personal title, but it also could be representational of sort of like a psychological trauma that we all face. What was the sort of like idea behind the making of Fragments of a Bitter Memory?
Well, as a whole, the album, we wanted to talk about many things. I think that one thing that makes this band really special is that we can talk about trauma and mental health and social and economic issues, as well as also write songs like Enemies and Reds and Cowards Bleed, which are, kind of more on the metal, heavier topic, as far as it's gory and it has that violence aspect to it. So we kind of just wanted to, come out with a record that fully encompassed who we were as a band and what we were going for. And as far as the title Fragments of Memory or Fragments of a Bitter Memory goes, when you have trauma, I had gone to therapy for the first time in a long time in 2020. And when you have trauma, you tend to go through therapy and recollect things. And so it was kind of like those fragments had come back to me. And then I wrote the title track kind of about a lot of things that had happened in my past. So.
And when you, because when it comes to the lyricism that you were mentioning, I got a lot of questions relating to the lyrics, actually. But, you write from a very personal place, but then there's also a lot of external sources of inspiration as well. So does the song resonate with you differently depending on the specific subject matter that you're singing about?
Yeah, definitely. Especially on different days, like lately, Hollowed by Affliction has been really hitting home for me because, I have been on tour for 8 months this year and I'm exhausted and honestly, my mental health is not the best. And so that song is written about, a lot of dark thoughts and dark times in my life. And so, and then there will be times, anniversaries will come around and different songs will resonate for me differently, or topics will come back up and those things will resonate differently with me too. I think it just depends on the day and what's happening.
When you have to, because obviously, creating art about, torment and trauma and stuff, obviously it's a very cathartic feeling to be able to release that. But when, there is so much negativity and darkness that's influencing your music, can that also maybe make the songwriting just as deteriorating as it could be cathartic?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's hard to get through the writing process for sure. It definitely is a cathartic experience. But it's also, in my experience, been a really healing process as well, especially when you get to play the songs live and then, you talk about it every day and, you kind of normalize the acceptance of the things that have gone on. And I think that is probably a bigger factor for me than like the actual cathartic writing process.
Did you always need the music before like you put pen to paper on the lyrics, or could the lyrical idea that you sing about in Dying Wish maybe help dictate the music itself in a way?
Oh no, I have the song almost complete before I put anything to it, and that's something that I'm trying to work on. I feel like I want to, be able to write more and then, put it to a song, but it's never Sam and our guitar player who writes all of the music and Randy, who is our producer. They give me a finished product and then I hear whatever message from the song. And then I go from there, essentially. That was the process on Fragments anyways.
In order to get that inspiration for the lyrics or, just expressing the vocals, do you almost kind of need to put yourself in a specific place in order to cultivate ideas, or does inspiration just strike out of the blue for you?
It depends. Definitely sometimes I have to put myself into a place, and like really dig deep into things and think about things the way I've never thought about them before in order to really pull out enough material to write, a complete song and around a specific topic.
Do you want the topic to be open to interpretation, or do you want to try to engage the listener into the meaning as much as the music?
I would like the listener to hear it and be able to interpret it however they want to. But, people have come up to me and said, oh, this song got me through this, and I've been through this, and it's not necessarily what I went through, but they interpreted it their own way. And I think that's what's really cool is I try not to make it so specific. It's really hard to write something so specific and make it relatable, and so people just relate to it however based off of their past and traumas and stuff.
Do you think that somebody else's interpretation can maybe add another layer of context to the song that it maybe didn't have previously?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And does that maybe also inspire you and maybe help you come up with more ideas in a way? Like, could maybe a listener's interpretation of a song, this is a very silly way of putting it, but maybe almost make you write the sequel to a song in a way?
I haven't gotten there yet, but I mean, that's definitely a possibility for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Or, there's songs that I've thought about writing sequels to, but it wouldn't be like so. I wouldn't be like, this is part 2. It would just be like the next chapter of that topic, I guess.
Yeah. And with a track like Enemies in Red to a track like Now You'll Rot to the title track Fragments of a Bitter, it almost seems like lyrically, in my interpretation, you're able to express it both your topics both in a very literal and metaphorical means as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that could also be, like Bloodlaced Misery, which is not. It's definitely like one of the more deeper tracks on the record. That was like not a song that I wrote. It was a song that Andrew wrote. Or if I have like, inspiration from other people in the band writing, then, they're more literal and I'm more poetic. And so we can kind of blend the two together to make it, kind of both.
Is it better if everybody in the band is really on the same page and in the same headspace when it comes to songwriting, or could all of you feeling differently about a song and maybe being in your own little worlds actually help maybe add contrast to the material?
I would say the latter. I think that, us having, different ideas and not necessarily opinions, but, different ways of thinking is more beneficial than all of us being like 100% in the same lane. I think it challenges all of us as, artists and musicians that way.
Of course, especially if you're working on a song for a long period of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And when you work on a song for a long period of time, is it maybe harder to sort of like capture that moment that initially sparked the idea, or is capturing a moment not really priority in songwriting?
I think that capturing the moment can be really important, but I also think that me personally, I, will have a hard time finishing a product. I think it's really helpful to step away, kind of like give your headspace a little bit of time to breathe and then reapproach it, and you might have, new inspiration. I definitely tend to write songs that way. Like when we wrote Fragments, I was more or less writing multiple songs at once. So if I was feeling stuck here, I would go somewhere else, finish that, feeling inspired by that, and, kind of finished the record in bits and pieces that way.
How do you sort of maintain your focus with that? Because I'd imagine that you want to keep the emotion consistent, right? Don't you kind of want to feel the same way when you finish a song as you do when you start it?
Yeah. I think that for me, it's pretty easy to focus on, okay, I want this song to be written about this, but I think that, as people, we're complicated and multifaceted, and we're able to experience all of these different emotions at once.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like that maybe the meaning of a song could like evolve over time as you evolve as an artist, or do you prefer if everything you create is more or less just a snapshot of who you are at that particular time?
No, I think that, I'm always trying to grow. I think that as people, we're always trying to grow. And so if our messages kind of change and affect us differently as we go, I think that that's important and a sign of growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm probably asking this a little too far in advance now, but Fragments of a Bitter Memory has resonated with a lot of people, myself included. Is this maybe like a good representation of where Dying Wish is going to go in the future, or do you prefer to maybe experiment a little bit more with your sound?
I think that we pretty well established the kind of sound that we want. However, I think that we're always trying to get better and, invent new ideas and grow as a band. And achieve new things, and there's definitely new things that we're gonna write and work on that we didn't do on Fragments. And you know, Fragments was like a very good debut record for us as far as this is who we are. And I think that our next record will be, this is really who we are. You know what I mean? We're going to take a lot more time on it because Fragments was, mostly all written in studio. And so I just think that, we are definitely going for, we're not going to surprise anyone and come out and be like, oh, here's a song that sounds nothing like us. But, we're just going to kind of master the craft that we do have.
Well, you have many different usages of your voice, I've noticed. And I think in the instrumentation, too, there's many different aspects within the riffage and the rhythm as well. I think it's fair to say that maybe experimenting and bringing in new parts into Dying Wish is almost part of the songwriting at this point, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love to sing, so that's, something that people heard on Fragments. We have no intention of stopping that, but we're definitely not going to, be an all clean singing band. And there's new things that we kind of played around with on Fragments that we're, really going to lean into and do new things as well.
With a different usage of your voice, does that express a different side of who you personally are as well?
I think that there's certain things that you can scream about that hit harder when you scream about them, and there's things that you can sing about that hit harder when you sing about them. So, but I mean, I've always been a singer. I've been singing since I was really young. Screaming is what's truly new to me. I've only been doing it for like 6 or 7 years. So, I think that, I don't know. I think that they're both really emotional, and there's just a time and place for both of them.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the live presence I wanted to talk about, too. This is going to be my 4th Dying Wish show now, and I can't wait.
This year?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But first thing and foremost, it's such a different energy watching you play live versus listening to you. It's just as incredible of an experience, but it's a different experience. Is there at all, though, maybe a similar energy that you channel into your live presence as you do when you're songwriting, or is playing live and songwriting two completely separate forms of self-expression for you?
That's a great question. I think that playing live is more of a physical challenge. Writing music is more of a mental challenge, so you get to kind of tap into both things. Writing and, recording and all of that it's very much a mental exercise, and playing live, you kind of already established these things and it's all physical. I'm really energetic on stage, and it's, you have to kind of be mindful of where your voice is and your body and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. I would say it's two kind of different forms of self-expression, because initially when you're writing the music, you're getting the idea out there and you're speaking it into existence. And then when you're performing it, you're very familiar with all of it already. And so it's kind of desensitized the topics a little bit for me. But it still is a nice expressive outlet to continue to.
Well, it's funny you mention that, too, because, when you're in a studio, it's a more static and more confined environment. There's expensive gear everywhere, and it's very controlled. Is that kind of, difficult to replicate that live energy in a vocal booth versus when you're on stage? I was wondering how, being in those two completely separate atmospheres, you can, replicate them both in two separate settings.
I would much rather play a show than track vocals. For some reason, there's this mental block for me that makes it hard, but it's I've also we've played probably 200 shows this year, and been in the studio for 1 week, and so it's just a different environment. It takes a little bit of getting used to.
Understandable. Do you almost have to practice? It's a very silly question. I asked Connie this when I interviewed her last year, but is it do you have to rehearse crowd interaction and stage presence as much as you have to practice the material in a way, or is that just a natural thing as you sing more and more?
Not really, no. I definitely try to think a little bit about what I'm going to say between songs or any of that. But it's just one of those things that, comes naturally within the moment. And as you continue to tour and are playing the same set.
Yeah, of course. And I have 2 more questions for you. Going back to songwriting, the most difficult part of the interview. How do you know when you are finished with a song?
when it's done. when like honestly, probably when we're tracking and Randy looks at me and looks at everyone and they're like, "Yep, it's done. It's good." Otherwise, there's always, I feel like, something that we could do to work on it, but it's quite the process, I would say. Until it's mixed, I'm like, still.
Then there's no turning back.
Yeah, exactly.
You can breathe that sigh of relief. And it was also, this was kind of like part two to a question I asked earlier too, like, with creating art about, toxic elements being deteriorating. Is there an art to writing about your own demons in a way? Because I've always said that sometimes when darkness is the fuel for creativity, or pain is the paintbrush, sometimes artists can become victims of their own product, is how I like to say it. They can sometimes succumb to madness in the process of singing about it. Is there a specific strategy that you have so you don't like lose yourself through the artistic process in a way?
No, I have not tried to combat that even a little bit. That's a really interesting question. I don't know. I mean, I would definitely say that, like, there's things about this that could potentially be toxic. Like, I feel like a lot of, my identity is the music. And that is, it's hard to kind of separate yourself, especially when you're on tour so much and have, like, a personal life and all of that. But I think that at the end of the day, it's just the music is a product of who you are, and you're ultimately in control of that. And so I think that that's just something maybe subconsciously that I've tried to keep at bay,
That's very, very impressive. I've always said that sometimes, like, the creative process is like one of those like mad scientist experiments where, like, something goes wrong and lightning strikes and you come out being this whole other demon that you were trying to conquer to begin with. So
yeah, I haven't really struggled with that, but who knows? I mean, there's still plenty of time for me to completely lose it. So
let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Unless if it helps with the album, but even
Right.
still.
Yeah, I hope you
mental health is
too.
important.
Maybe you'll see me break. Who knows?
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's so great to finally have Dying Wish on the show. Is there just anything else with Dying Wish that you would like to promote after this tour with Counterparts that you're allowed to talk about? Of course, 2023, I'd imagine, is going to be a big year.
Yeah, 2023. Well, I can tell you that if any of your listeners are in the UK or in Europe, that we're going to be back there with Counterparts in April and May of next year with KubaCon. So, we're playing LDB. That's sold out. So if you got tickets to that, we'll see you there. Otherwise, everything, we're just kind of, going to take a break, which I feel like we all really need.
You've earned it.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's about it. We just put out a music video for Now You'll Rot off of the first record. So check that out. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Emma of Dying Wish, Fragments of a Bitter Memory. Pick it up if you haven't already. You are missing out. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.